Hey everybody, this is David Millar with the Millar Group. We are your local Russian River real estate experts, and today we are talking about Bill AB38, Assembly Bill 38. It's a California law that requires there to be defensible space around every house. Now there's been some confusion of whether this bill and the requirement to have an inspection done is dependent on the buyer or the seller, who's responsible for it. So I want to talk through that and give you a little bit better idea about that if you're thinking about buying or selling, because now we have these rules in California where you have to have defensible space for fires around a house. When a home sells, there's a form that has to be filled out, and I'll show you this form here. It's called the Fire Hardening and Defensible Space Disclosure Addendum. Now, when you are selling your house, if you are listing your home, you're going to get a natural hazard disclosure report done. And the natural hazard disclosure report will tell you if your home is in a high fire zone or a severe fire zone. And if it is, then this document needs to be filled out, the FHDS. Now, if you look at her on item 3A, local compliance requirement will generally be checked if it's in a high fire zone. So this says the property is subject to local vegetation management ordinance requiring defensible space around the improvement on the property. Okay, so that's acknowledging that the property is and requires a management program. Then we would go down to item CB3, which says that on this form would generally be checked where it says buyer responsibility. That means the seller is not doing the inspection, and they're not required to do the inspection by state law. The only requirement is that it gets done, and if it's not done by the seller who opts out, then the buyer is required to do it 1 year after moving into the house. So what this clause says is local vegetation management ordinance in effect, which does not require compliance as a result of the sale of the property. So you don't have to have this fire inspection done to sell the house. But what it does is it says buyer shall obtain documentation of compliance with the state defensible space law within 1 year of close of escrow, or if applicable, comply with local requirements after close of escrow. So basically, in most cases out here, you will get this form and you will see that the seller is not done the inspection and that they are asking that the buyer do the inspection. Now, as a buyer, are you forced to have to do this inspection 1 year after close? No, you're not. You can try to push it back on the seller if you want, but they may not want to do it, and you may want the house, so you may assume the responsibility to have the inspection done. Now, let me show you an actual hazard report. So this is a flood and fire report. We're going to focus mostly on the fire issues here. This property is, you'll see the box checked. It says it's in a high or very high fire hazard severity zone. And it also says that it's in a high fire hazard in state responsibility area. So that means that this house would require to have an AB38, the document completed and filled out for submission when the home is purchased, and they have to determine who's going to do the inspection. Now, when you get this hazard report, this is also vital for you when you're getting your fire insurance, because if you are in a high or severe fire zone, you're not going to most likely be able to get fire insurance from a traditional insurance source like Farmers State Farm. They've mostly pulled out of those areas. What you would need to do is then have your insurance agent apply for the FAIR plan. The FAIR plan is a state plan, so you can get fire insurance for the house. It's not homeowner's insurance, so you have to get a separate homeowner's insurance policy. But this is where you would find out if you're in one of those high fire zones and if that would be required. So this This document is also important for the insurers. Now, insurers do their own checking. There's a bunch of different maps about fire zones, so it gets a bit complicated. All you have to realize is that the fire insurance, your insurer will determine what zone you're in, and if you're not, you're going to need to get the Fair Plan fire insurance. But back to the inspections. Defensible space by CAL FIRE. We want to talk about what the different defensible space means. That's like, well, what do I have to do to my property? What the heck does this mean? So there's 3 different zones around your house. Zone 0 is the closest to your home, and it needs to be the most ember resistance. The first 5 feet from your home is the most important. Keeping the area closest to buildings, structures, and decks clear will prevent embers from igniting materials that can spread to fire your home. So what you want to do around the perimeter of your house is use like gravel, pavers, or concrete, not combustible bark or mulch. You don't want that up against the house. You're supposed to remove all dead and dying plants, weeds, and debris from your roof, the gutters, the decks, the porch, the stairways, and under inner areas of your home. And remove all branches within 10 feet of a chimney. Limit combustible items like lawn furniture and that type of thing on top of decks. Relocate your firewood. If your firewood's stacked next to your house, you're going to need to relocate the firewood to zone 2. You want to replace combustible fencing and gates and arbors attached to the home with non-combustible alternatives. And they'd like you to consider relocating your garbage and recycling containers outside of the zone. So that's that area which is right around the house. They want you to keep that area basically very clear and clean. So that's what they call zone 0. Zone 1 is within 30 feet of the house, and they want you to regularly clear dead, dry vegetation and create space between trees. During times of drought when water is limited, pay special attention to clearing dead and dying material. Remove all dead plants, remove all dead leaves, and trim trees regularly. That's around 30 feet. And then within 100 feet of your house, they want you to cut and mow the grass annually, create horizontal space between trees and shrubs, create vertical space between grass, shrubs, and trees, remove all fallen leaves, basically keep everything clear and clean. So what somebody does is they come out and they do an inspection of your house to make sure that all these things are complete, and then they will give you a report. Now, you may say, well, how do I get that report done? When you get your hazard report that shows that you're in a high or very high fire zone, there's links to CAL FIRE. You can either go through like Sonoma, you can go through the Sonoma County Permit Department, they will do an inspection for you, or you can contact your local fire district and they may do an inspection for you too. If you're a seller and you want to be proactive and already have this all done before you list your house, you can do an inspection. It's good for 6 months, and then you can provide that inspection to the buyer. Or if you're buying the house, you will have 1 year from the close of escrow to be able to complete this inspection and do the work. So I hope that makes it a little bit easier about Bill AB38 and the fire hazard issues and being able to deal with that when you're buying or selling a house. If you've got any questions regarding this or anything else in Sonoma County or in the Russian River regarding real estate, we'd love to help you out. Again, my name is David Millar. My number is 707-217-1786. Have a great day.